Hey sis, if I told you that when men have beef between each other, they drag black women and girls into it by way of rape as a war strategy, would that be a reason to hold your attention? Presently, in what could be considered developed countries, common issues women are facing, such as reduced access to contraception, rights to abortion being reversed, and a rise in femicide, are key issues for black African women, notably in Congo. It's for this reason I would argue women's issues and feminism from an intersectional view of being black and female is not limited to something black women should be advocating for awareness about in developed countries only. Black women around the diaspora need unity about femicide and women's issues, period. As part of this unity, issues for black women in less developed countries, us black women around the diaspora should be concerned with. This is because if we dive into international reports and data on the conditions that women are living in globally, as I often do, and we focus on black women in particular globally, what we see is that there's a mirror reflection of what's happening with black femicide and women's rights being rolled back in less developed countries also, which I covered in my recent essay, A Quick Look at Global Femicide. If you are catching this on YouTube, it will be linked in the description box, or it may just pop up somewhere in the corner on the right-hand side as I'm talking now. If you are on Substack, it will be linked directly in this written essay. So the difference in what's happening in locations outside of the developed world, like the US, Canada, or Europe, is manifesting in a different way. It's due to war and black men's conflict between them, rather than what we see in more developed areas, such as a rise in right-wing, conservative, white and black males that we have been experiencing in the more developed world. Historically, black women have been unmoved by the words feminism or women's rights, in favour for upholding black men and their rights to fight for racism that they face from non-black people. I have said this many times. Since the 60s and 70s, the words black power have replaced women's rights and feminism in the black community. Sadly, all these years later, if we look at this has been to black women's deterrent. The proof of this is in the mindset and the talking points of the black manosphere in developed countries, their viewpoints on women, and the rise in their alignment with white, male and conservative views, or them chasing fool's gold, as I call it in my essay, 3 ways black women were removed from history, politically, economically and spiritually. In less developed countries such as Congo, which I will focus on for this essay, there are 4 main areas of worry for black women that mirror our worries for black women that we have in the more developed world with, for example, the manosphere. It just manifests differently. First issue is a rise in sexual violence towards women. Second issue is a reduced access to reproductive rights and health, or forced motherhood. And the third issue is a stark rise in intimate partner violence or gender-based violence. So stay with me and let's look at this. So on the issue of reproductive rights for Congolese women. So Congo, for anyone who may not be aware, is located in Central Africa. It is the 2nd largest location after Algeria, and it is bordered by about 9 different countries. Sadly, it's been in conflict for several years. There's been infighting between a few of the eastern provinces, mainly in locations such as North Kivu, and I hope I've said that correctly, and South Kiev. One group involved in the conflict, called the March 23 movement, has been heavily involved. The impact this has had on black women and girls is how the conflict has led to an increase in sexual violence, child marriages and abuse of women by men who are on the opposing side of where these black women and girls who are raped are from. What we see here is black men, or men we could just say, but it is black men exploiting black women and girls due to their own hatred and conflict with their own enemies, which would be other black men. But they are using women of their enemies as a war strategy in quotation marks. This is the different manifestation that is causing the same issues for women in developed countries, it could be argued. In July 2025, the United Nations Population Fund reported in their State of the Population 2025 report that 44% of women and girls worldwide don't have decision-making power or bodily autonomy over sexual relations, contraception, or reproductive healthcare. In the Democratic Republic of Congo, this rises to a staggering 69%. That is a direct quotation from them. The report by the United Nations Popular Fund will be linked in the description box below, and if you are on Substack, it will be directly linked within this essay. One of the black female respondents, who she gave a name of Benny, she responded to their research and she commented that in our country, it's not always you who decides whether you want a child or not. Sometimes it's your family, your husband, or just life's circumstances. That is a direct quotation from one of the black female respondents to this research. It was found in the same research report that in Congo, 1 in 5 women wish to wait for children or delay becoming mothers but have no access or means to contraception. As a result, 11% of the birth rate that happened in this country were to women aged just 15 to 19 years old. Realistically, we can't even say this is a group of women. This is a group of young girls and teenagers, 15 to 19 years old. If we compare this to what's happening on our own doorstep as black women, those of us in developed countries are also experiencing less say over our motherhood choices. Rights have been rolled back to abortion under Trump's administration, and men are pressuring women into marriages in the manosphere, and they are making single child-free women feel like outcasts because they don't want to be chained to their male expectations for women. That has been proved really does not benefit them as women. The issue of sexual violence during conflict, so when rape is used as a weapon. As a black woman in a well-developed European country myself, it is beyond me why men can't deal with their conflict in the Congo between them and leave black women and girls out of it. It puzzles and enrages me to think that this M23 group, the March 23 movement, and other rebel groups in the conflict have felt that it's okay to include rape, sexual violence, and exploitation of black women and girls as part of their strategy to make gains and wins against the enemies they are in conflict with. The organisation In Focus reported in June 2025 that rape is being used as a weapon. This is a direct quotation from them. And if you are catching this on Substack, the link to their report will be directly in the essay. If you are on YouTube, I will put it in the description box below. During this male-centered and male-led conflict in Congo, this is what's happening. Doctors Without Borders have reported an increase in their treatment of sexual assault and rape victims. The black women and girls of Congo, and they are mainly in the North Kivu area, since the fighting started between the M23 and rival groups a few years ago. In June 2025, a press release was issued by Doctors Without Borders, or sometimes they are referred to as Médecins Sans Frontières in French, as French is the official language of Congo due to European colonizers' history that they have here. The volunteer doctors put out an official appeal for aid due to the medical emergency with these Congolese women, with the violence and with all the R word that is taking place as a method of conflict and war in this part of the world. Now, again, if you are on Substack, their direct appeal and their press release will be linked in this essay. If you are on Substack, I will put it in the description box below. So a few key things that black women should be aware of from this press release that they put out earlier this year is that 40,000 women and children were treated in 2024, 7,400 victims and survivors they located, 700 people in the Kahil and Uvia, I hope I've pronounced that correctly, regions of this country since the start of 2025 were treated. A majority of the attacks reported in 2025 were committed at gunpoint, with the perpetrators still remaining unaccountable. The most eye-watering statistic that I read was this one. A registered 67,000 cases of S-word violence against women and children in the first 4 months of 2025 was recorded, and this was a 38% increase from the year of 2024. Just wow. Why this matters for Black women in developed countries around the diaspora. I use the term women in developed countries in quotation marks so loosely because yes, while we have hospitals, education and systems in place that are significantly more developed than where these Black women are impacted, we face the same regressive control, dictation, and removal of women's reproductive rights as they do. And this is going backwards in my view. Black women around the diaspora should be concerned about our Congolese Black sisters because during this male-centered and male-dominated conflict that really has nothing to do with Black women and children, it appears it's just about a group of men and their egos in this part of the world. This is having a big impact on Black women and children, as when healthcare, hospitals or places of refuge for women and children collapse as part of this conflict, it's women, girls and the children that are left at risk and are vulnerable with nowhere to hide, while the men continue to puff out their chests and have this battle. The loss of land or livelihoods or transportation or any way that these women survived before places them in a situation where they may need to exchange sexual services for protection or provision, which has been widely reported. The women cannot migrate easily away from the area with their children, so they are caught and they are trapped. So what Black women around the diaspora can actually do? What is concerning is that when men have their beef between each other, why is it that women and children need to be dragged into their bullshit? For those of us around the diaspora witnessing this, other than reading their reports, writing about it, advocating and bringing awareness about the situation that Black women face here, to other people outside there in the world or other Black women, we can also answer the Médecins Sans Frontières or the Doctors Without Borders direct call for assistance by donating what you can. A few pounds, euros, dollars, whatever your currency may be can help these Black women and their health and well-being. I have donated in the past to this organisation for various causes impacting Black women, and I would say that they are a safe organisation to respond to. They're also very good at writing to you after you've given a donation and letting you know the situation or what's going on with any causes that you've supported. Another thing that we need to keep in mind is that white feminism and the mainstream are not going to pick up this emergency situation facing women because they are Black and female. This is an intersection that white women just can't understand. There's no two ways about it. History has shown us, if we look at the history of white feminism, that they have no interest in defending anything against male oppression or exploitation that does not impact them. We can look at white feminism's history from the very, very first wave of feminism all the way up to this fourth wave of feminism that we are supposed to be in. It's the same thing. These Black women are not being directly impacted by white men, and there's no risk to any white woman here. So it's up to Black women and anyone who cares to raise awareness to help out and to start unity between Black women around the diaspora from this point. In my essay, A Quick Look at Global Femicide, I made reference to the need for Black women to become connected around the diaspora. This is also a huge reason why I started to write notes on Black women on Substack, and I started to share my writing from Substack here on this YouTube channel. In my daily notes for Black women number 35, I also made reference to the significance of Congolese women to me personally, being a woman of Caribbean descent. Congolese women have played a role in the history of the transatlantic slave trade from a Caribbean perspective that is very significant. And I do make reference to this and kind of explain why in my daily note. So if you are catching this on YouTube, I will link it in the description box below. And if you are on Substack, it will be directly linked in this essay. So based on this, the least we can do is to keep these Black women in this part of the world in our minds and on our agendas as part of the fight for Black women's issues that we face around the Black diaspora. So that's it for today. Thank you so much for being here and joining me if you've made it this far. If you are on YouTube and you do enjoy this kind of content, then why not consider subscribing, drop me a comment, give the video a like, let me know how you feel about this situation facing Black women in this part of the world. If you are on Substack, then thank you so much for being here. I really do appreciate you also. I will catch you in the next one. Much love, the Black Woman Essayist.